chciałam wszystkich bardzo serdecznie przywitać na tej sesji popołudniowej. Nazywam się Ewa Rumińska-Zimny, jestem ekonomistką, ale bardzo ostatnio interesuje mnie STEM i współpraca tutaj z Bianką Siwińską i z Fundacją Perspektywy. Uważam, że to jest przyszłość, ekonomii również. I chciałabym przeprosić za to, że będę moderować w języku angielskim, ponieważ nasze wszystkie panelistki są angielskojęzyczne. Mamy naprawdę wyjątkowy panel dzisiaj na temat roli kobiet w nauce i wyższej edukacji. Now I will switch to English, so I hope it's okay. If you need, please take the translator for the Polish language. We welcome now our last panelists. So today we will discuss the problems, and in fact we will focus on two issues. What is the gap, the gender gap, and what could be done about it? In a very international context, we have a very distinguished row of panelists, and if I go from my right, we have a very difficult name, Dr. Nigist Tilahun Gebremedhin, who is coordinator of University STEMcenter in Ethiopia. We have Professor Bystydzienski from Ohio State University in the US. Then we have Dr. Hana AL-Nuaim. She's a Dean of Women's Campus at the King Abdulaziz University in Saudi Arabia. The next person is Marta Tondera. She's the president of the Federation of Polish Student Societies in the UK. As you know, there are many Polish students studying in the UK. And finally, we have Dr. Shannon from Dublin Institute of Technology, Marie Curie Research Fellow from Ireland. So we have really a very exciting group of people who will be sharing with us the view, what is the role of women, what are the problems, what are the gaps, and what the research show as well. So I would like now to give the floor to Bystydzienski, who will make the first presentation, and I will ask successive speakers to present. And then I hope we will have a few minutes for questions. So think about your questions to ask the panelists in hopefully some 10 minutes time when we will be left for our panel. So Jill, the floor is yours.
Yeah. Could we have the slides? Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's such an honor and a pleasure to be here today with you. And I really enjoyed the morning. And I've been doing work on women and gender in the STEM fields in the United States now for about 15 years. I've been doing research on the issues of the gender gap. And also looking more generally at the diversity or the lack of it in STEM fields. And let's see, how am I going to do this? Okay. So I wanted to start with just a few statistics concerning women in academic STEM fields in the U.S. And as you heard this morning from the keynote speaker, he already he had a sort of a table with some statistics. And women, this is for 2014, so the last available data. And women were 57% of all the graduating students in all of the fields in higher education. However, in the science and engineering, in terms of science and engineering degrees, they obtained 40% of the first level degrees, the bachelor's degrees, and 34% of graduate degrees. And then in terms of the faculty, there were 35% of those in STEM. Now, this actually doesn't look too bad when you look at the overall picture. However, when you disaggregate these larger categories, it begins to look differently. In fact, in a number of the STEM fields, women actually are about 20 or even less than 20%. And I just wanted to give you three examples. So here's physics, for example, in 2014, 21% of the first degrees, 19% of doctoral degrees, and only 14% of faculty. And actually in the early 2000s, the proportion was higher than it is today. Here's some data for computer science, which is actually quite alarming because we only now have about 14% of women getting, of all the bachelor's degrees obtained by women. This has not changed since the year before. And less than 20% of doctoral degrees. But look at the next line. In the mid-'80s, 37% of computer science degrees went to women. They started going down then, and they're now down to 14%. And because there's so few women graduating with degrees, and actually most of them go into industry, go into the private sector, only 10% of the faculty is female. And this is a real concern in the U.S. right now because of all the growth in the in terms of the IT sector and so on, and so few women actually getting the degrees, getting the qualifications. And here's some data for engineering. So in '89, there were 17% of the degrees were obtained by women. By 2014, they went up to only 18.6%. They actually were a little higher in the 2000s, and again have gone down a little bit. And doctoral degrees about 20%, and only about 14% of the faculty are women. Now the picture is even worse for women who are from underrepresented minority groups. So I just have a little data here. I don't have enough time to really go into that. But I think these slides will be made available. So if you're interested later in looking at them in more depth, you know, they will be available to you. And then there's also concern about underrepresentation of people with disabilities. Again, only about 1% of the bachelor's degrees are obtained by people with disabilities. The majority of those are supposed to be female as far as we know, but there are no data really to find out how they're represented in the STEM fields. But we do know that they're just very, very few. Okay. Another kind of interesting point here about the STEM pay to gender gap in pay. As you can see, the median salary in 2013 for women was $27,000 lower than that for men. Now this is in all the STEM, and engineering fields. Yeah. Okay, so. I was going to talk a little bit about the reasons for continuing underrepresentation, both at the individual and the institutional level. Again, I don't have much time for that. Some of these reasons were actually discussed in the panel this morning. In Poland, there are similarities to the U.S. in this regard. In terms of the institutional level, one of the major problems is the organization, the culture of STEM departments and STEM colleges, and that again also was addressed this morning. So what I really wanted to focus on is a program that I have been looking into and actually have been involved myself in for several years now, and actually, which is the National Science Foundations, which is the U.S. government agency that funds a lot of research, the science research in the United States. But in 2001, the NSF launched a program called Advance. And to date, 199 institutions received 297 grants. So some of them received more than one. There are several different categories of these programs, but the one that I think is most effective and the one that I looked at and actually researched is called institutional transformation grants. And the goal of these grants is to develop a kind of systemic, comprehensive approach to increase representation and advancement of women. And by women, it's understood that these are diverse women, that they're women from all different races and ethnic groups and other categories are represented in that. And the idea is then, that if these interventions are successful and comprehensive, then this will contribute to a more diverse science and engineering workforce, both in academia and outside of academia. These awards are substantial. They range from between $3 to $5 million. They usually last at least 5 years. And it's also, there's an expectation that once they're done, the funding is gone, then the universities themselves will continue supporting these programs. In my own sort of study of these programs, and by the way, I've been involved as a co-principal investigator in 2 of them, one at Iowa State University, another one at the university where I'm at right now, Ohio State. And so what I could discern from these programs is that there are at least 5 categories of projects that people have developed, that the universities have developed. One category of projects has to do with development of policies that are supposed to support women, help women to balance, but also, of course, they're open to men, so everyone benefits, so that the faculty are able to balance work and family. There are also programs to raise awareness particularly of the administration, but also of senior faculty, regarding issues of diversity, excellence, implicit bias. People often think that if you're going to have more diversity on the faculty, then you're somehow reducing the standards, which is actually just the opposite. The research shows that the more diverse a workforce you have, the more diverse work groups you have, that in fact people tend to be more innovative, and that it's a good thing rather than a negative thing. Then there are programs to bring about culture change, which are very comprehensive. We heard this morning about the culture change that took place in the schools, in the STEM schools. Those are, very important kinds of changes that and they usually take place at the departmental level, where most of the faculty are based. And then mentoring, leadership, and various networking programs, and also, finally, entrepreneurship programs for women in science, STEM. Okay, I'm going to have to move very quickly. So what I tried to do is I tried to provide some examples for each of those categories. In terms of the policies, the focus is to provide more flexibility for faculty, especially for women, to be able to integrate work and family. And even institute paid parental leave, which we, as you know, you've heard, in the United States we don't have that. We don't have a federal policy for paid leave, but the universities themselves, those who have had these programs, have been able to do that. Spousal or partner hiring is really important because in the United States, women in science in academia are typically partnered with another academic scientist, so they can work in the same place, and they're much happier and more productive and stay in the universities. Here's some examples of 3 examples of programs that raise awareness regarding diversity and implicit bias, which people talked about this morning as well. Programs to bring about culture change. And culture change really has to do with shifting values and assumptions that underlie the practices in universities, so that they become more inclusive, collegial, and supportive places for women and other people who are underrepresented. But of course, everyone benefits. Men benefit as well. And then here's some examples of different kinds of mentoring, leadership, and networking programs as well that have been instituted in many of these programs. And finally, there are just a few entrepreneurship programs for women. One of them I'm proud to say is at my own university, so I provided a link to that one, which has been very successful. So I also recently took a sample of 55 of the advanced universities and looked more closely at what happens in terms of outcomes. And I found that in all of them, they actually increased the numbers of women on the faculty and in leadership positions. In many of these, they've improved the leadership of the administration and senior faculty, that there's a better, more satisfaction among the faculty. The retention rates are better for women faculty in these places. And can't read the last one that anyway. But one word of caution is that once the funding is gone, and also because the universities in the United States now are getting much less funding than ever before, it's, there's a concern that the universities may not be able to continue these programs, continue indefinitely, especially if they begin to lose their funding. So finally, in conclusion, it sounds like a lot of universities, 199, but that's only less than 3% of all US universities, because there are 7,200, more than 7,200 of them. But to increase the impact of these programs, many of these 199 advanced universities have actually made these best practices available to others. So they have been exporting these ideas and these programs throughout the country, throughout the universities. I don't have any kind of even estimate as to how many were, influenced by this, but I know that there are very, very many that have benefited besides these 199. Now, so of course, it's still, undergoing. We still are seeing low numbers of women in the fields. It's alarming that these numbers are not rising. That in fact, in some fields they've gone down. But the hope for the future is that the combination of these kinds of programs, as well as other kinds of interventions that are going on, like in the school that the keynote speaker was talking about, but also in other schools, before people go into the university, that those two things, that so once you keep the women interested in the pipeline, and then they come to the university, and then the culture is much better and accepting, that kind of combination will eventually lead to more gender equality in this area.
Thank you very much. I think this was a very interesting overview of what's possible. However, as we see, the results are still not enormous, 3% of universities. And the second remark, which I may make, is that some of the programs end with the funding ends, which is very typical for many gender equality programs everywhere, in each country, in Poland especially. You have a program and then it's wonderful, but when the program ends, you have good practices on paper and that's it. I'm sorry to be that pessimistic, but I think we should be realistic how to move ahead. Now I would be happy to give the floor to our speaker from Saudi Arabia, and we will listen more what's going on there and what are the problems of Saudi Arabia women.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everyone. I chose this title for a reason, because as I was doing my research, I found that there's report that's called Why So Few Women in STEM? And this report has been cited by so many researchers. In our case, we are opposite of the global trend. STEM and medical fields are flooded with women. Actually flooded. We have a problem because we have to close the doors on all the females who want the STEM and medical fields. I'll just give you an overview. Of course, this is, again, another report that talk about the US and other countries. And they found that actually Iran, Oman, and Saudi Arabia have more women in the science degree. So this is a report by an American researcher. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, of course, is a large country. It's the second in Asia. A lot of people keep asking me, where are you from, especially in Poland? Where is it from? Dubai? Dubai is like a dot, only a dot to our right. It's like asking the Polish people, where is it from Monaco? So Dubai is just one tiny city. This is the media images of my country, desert and camels and palm trees, and which we do have, of course, but in the cities, our cities are metropolitan, just like Dubai, and we have much more than Dubai, and we have many, many metropolitan cities. The population is basically 20 million. It's cited as 30 million, but 10 million are expatriates. They are basically the foreign workers. And this number is very important to us because there's a program called Saudization, which is trying to replace the expats with local workers, because basically we are qualified now. The females are 49%, and you would see that this number is actually reflective in the university level. I also found that there's a ranking or an expectancy indicator about women, about students who stay in school. And it turns out that Saudi Arabia is just like the US and Russia and most of the European countries. If you look at high school graduates by growth, we are also following the same trend. There's more growth in the female sector than on the male sector. And it normally is close to the average between male and female. This is about high school. Of course, we have public schools and we have public institutions and private institutions. Most of the institutions in Saudi Arabia are public, are government. But we do have private institutions for those who can afford it because they're not that cheap. We also have a general aptitude test because there's so much rise in the private institutions, and we don't want the students who actually go into university to be only for the privileged, because they could easily pump up the grades in the private institutions. So they created the GAT test. Every student who goes into a public university must go through, it's like an SAT. Must take this test. So we looked into the statistics to see why do girls go into sciences more than males? Is it because they're getting better education from K through 12? Turns out no. Actually, the top 10 ranking, the male schools are getting, this is a 3-year average, the male are just a tiny bit better. So basically they're getting the same amount of education. So there's nothing from the K through 12 to basically give us a clue why girls always try to fight to get into these colleges. And we have 20 government universities. We have much more private universities. The government universities are generally very large. We are the largest in Saudi Arabia, and we are #1 in the Arab world. We're #1 in terms of ranking, not in terms of size. I think one in Egypt is larger. These are, of course, universities are scattered all around. Most of them are male-female. We only have one that's totally female and one that's totally male. And this is basically the ratio of undergraduate students. We're nearly equal. Year after year, we're nearly equal. Sometimes we are more, girls are more, sometimes it depends on the graduation level. But if you look at the studies in the sciences, you'll find that the science and the health sciences and technology, you'll find that the girls actually are more. In engineering, it's not, because we are the first university who opened a school of engineering, and we have our first graduates this year. They graduated, they completed the studies. We're the only one that are a female engineering college, and the girls are so excellent. We're actually being bombarded by other universities to tell us our experience because they want to open up College of Engineering. There are, however, engineering in the private colleges. So this is basically the sciences. If we look at the specific fields, the sciences, females are much more. Health, they are a bit more. Engineering, they're less because we're just starting. Now if you look at the graduate studies, again, also reflective about that the graduate students, Saudi graduate students, the females are much more in the sciences and the health fields, but not, of course, in engineering. This is the science, this is health, and this is engineering. And if we look at these numbers, these are the number of female students in higher education sponsored abroad from a government university. And a lot of them are in the sciences. They don't let you go to study humanities. You have to be in the fields that are sought after. So it's health fields, sciences, engineering, things like that. If you want to go study history, they won't let you. They won't pay for you. And in this paper, they were talking about what's so special about STEM and its retention, and the findings, of course, about why they leave these fields, why they don't want to go in, and why do they actually leave because of family obligations or they're not equal pay and all of that. I tried to reflect on these findings. How do they apply to us? The situation for us is not like that. Most of the jobs are sought after by women. They want these jobs. We have equal pay for equal work since the dawn of salaries. We've never had a gender gap in salaries, ever, in anything. There's no such thing as he gets paid more than me. This never happened in any type of salary. Salaries are a chart, and it's not gender specific at all. But the problem is now Saudi women are getting more qualified for the jobs that are available. What are the incentives? Why do students want these fields, to go into these fields? The allowances are much more. If you're going to the sciences fields, you get, because we pay students in government universities, you get a monthly salary, 20% more if you're in the STEM fields. So that's also an incentive. For faculty, if you get 40% of your salary if you're in the engineering, 30% if you're administrative, 20% on the other fields. If you're in medical-related fields, you get 70% more on your salary. So this is basically an incentive for a lot of people to go into these fields. Now for women, if you reflect on the study, why do women like to go into these fields when they want to get married? Of course, in our culture, it's expected the woman gets married and have children because the government allows leaves. You can have paid for 2 months leave maternity, and for 3 years, you get a quarter of your salary if you want to stay home. You cannot be fired at all if you leave your job because you want to stay with your baby. So you get a quarter of a salary. If your spouse dies, you can stay home for 4 months and 10 days, because this is basically in our religion, paid for. So all of these leaves, and if my husband has to go work abroad, I am allowed to go with him. I can never be fired from my job. And so many of these leaves allows us to go into the STEM fields, not fearing that if we have a situation, a family situation, that we'll be fired. So this is why it doesn't matter to us if we get something happens and I'm a doctor or I'm a pharmacist. But of course, we do have unemployment for women. They're just starting to get into the industrial parts of the country and the business part of the country. In education, we don't have any problem because we're segregated. So that means for every male who's working in a school, there's a female. For every dean in a college, there's a female dean. For every vice dean, there's another vice dean. So we don't compete with men on these jobs. We have such an equality in education, higher education, and in the health field. It's the other places that there still is a problem because it's a different type of environment. But the government has intervened and started creating laws that you must hire women. So if you go to a mall, most of the people you're going to see selling are females. And now you started going to the airport, you're going to find females. So they're intervening because they want to replace foreign workers with qualified women. I can tell you from now that business owners want to hire women more than they hire men, young ladies more than men, because young men want to go there for a month or two because they want to find a better job. Young ladies tend to stay at that job, so they are recruiting females more than they recruit men for businesses. So these are some of the initiatives that the Ministry of Labor has done, and they keep making initiatives, seeing the results, then making more initiatives, and there are more to come. In my university, it was established nearly 50 years ago. We are the largest in the kingdom. We have nearly a couple of campuses scattered inside Jeddah, and there is one outside of Jeddah. These are our rankings in the STEM fields in 2015. Mathematics, actually, we were #1 in the Arab world. We are #1 in the Times Higher ranking in the Arab world. Now, in university enrollment, I want to give you now data to show you what happens to the girls when they enter university. Of course, they have to take the GAT score, and they have to decide what they need, what they want. Do they want the science track or the humanities track? 70 to 80% want the science track, but the problem is that the seats get filled up. So some of them have to go to the humanities track and end up in a humanities college, which they never wanted in the first place. Her GPA is good enough, but we only have limited seats in these colleges. This is just an example about how many slots you have in a certain college, and you would see that it's absolutely full with the females. Some of the colleges in the men's side, they don't fill up. They even try to lower the standard, lower the GPA, so they'll get more customers, but they don't. For us, no, we can never, ever make the GPA requirement less because it's always full, always. This is just an example. Information technology, science, same thing. The Faisaliya have less because it's a faraway campus, so not a lot of students want to go there. It's just so out of their way. It's sort of outside the city limits, so this is why the numbers are less. We opened that campus to relieve the pressure on the main campus. This is the sciences and health. And I get asked questions that when students go into medicine, or dentistry, do they leave? They never leave. No matter what, they get married, they come back, they have babies, they come back, they never leave. So retention is quite high. So medicine. College. Okay. And this is engineering. Engineering, of course, when we first opened engineering, there was a lot of fights about society is not ready, parents are not ready. We could not be more ready. We allowed only 50 students the first semester. We got 700 fully acceptable candidates, and we could only accept 50. And the pressure from the parents that to allow their students to go into engineering was extremely high. So we always, the seats are 50, we end up accepting 70 because we get pressure from here and there. And it's such a success. The engineering college is such a success. And I'll show you examples of their success. This is engineering. That hurts me because we're not used to having such the small color for females. That's so different. In terms of, I wanted to make sure, to prove to you that students who go into the humanities don't go there because they want to, because they have to. We have 9,000 foundation year students. We took a sample of the students and we gave them a questionnaire to ask them, if you were in the sciences, what are the colleges you want to go to? And if you were in the humanities, did you actually want to be in the humanities or not? So we were shocked to know that only 9% of them were actually wanted to go into the sciences. And when we asked, what are the colleges? They're always STEM colleges for the humanities track and the science track. These are the numbers. Always it's medical, engineering, these are the number one because we have a system, an electronic system of acceptance. You put your first preference, your second preference, and your third preference. Then according to your GPA in the foundation year, you're automatically put into the slot that you fit. And that college will take the highest 50. Then if you don't make it, they look at your second. It's all electronic. They look at your second request and they put you in that college. So sometimes the difference between you and the last person who was accepted is 0.000001, and you get maybe 1,000 students with that number. And every parent thinks his student is just that far from being accepted. And we keep showing them the number. There's 1,000 girls just like your daughter. How can we accept 1,000? So this is what people the parents don't understand. At the beginning of the year, it's a very stressful time for me, very stressful time from all the calls. I don't answer any numbers I don't even know.
When do you start?
This year, we're going to start mid-September. Yeah. Usually we start the 1st of September. So these are the preferences of the tracks. Most of them, of course, are STEM fields. Our students have accomplished, and especially the females, they accomplish across the board. And we have a scientific conference every year in coordination with the Ministry of Education. And the last year was very, very intriguing because we have different categories. Most of the categories with the papers were taken 100% by the females. The male students won things like speech, art, photography. The heavy stuff were the ladies. The female first place were 29, but 29 are papers. And they were all reviewed internationally, nothing local. And most of these papers eventually get published in ISI journals. As for our stars, the engineering students, For the first time ever, we went to the Geneva Convention, and this is the first university that goes from Saudi Arabia. So it's our first time, and we are the only representative from the country, and we got 3 of the 6 gold medals. 3 of them girls, and we got 50% of the gold medals. The 3 were girls, 2 of them were engineering. And we were so proud of them. We had 1 female that got silver and 1 male that got bronze. And these are all the achievements of the engineering students. In such a short time, they accomplished far more than anybody had expected. They get awards from MIT, from Boeing, from places we could never imagine our girls. And whenever they go to conferences, their papers get the awards for the best paper. Thank you. Done before time.
Thank you. We are all very much impressed by what was done. And then in the discussion, maybe we could ask a question, why in Saudi Arabia so many women wants to go to STEM? But not yet. I mean, we can give the floor, give the floor to Shannon.
Hello, thank you for being here, and thanks for being so awake and bright and attentive after lunch. Hopefully I'll have some more happy stories like these that we've just heard. I am studying as a researcher women's experiences of STEM education, and I've been talking with women in Poland, Portugal, from the Middle East, but not from Saudi Arabia, from Kuwait and Oman, and also from Ireland. I obviously am not Irish. I came first to Ireland from the United States as a Fulbright Fellow, and then I asked the European Union to fund me to come do some more work from what I was doing as a Fulbright. So at the moment, I'm working as a Mary Skłodowska-Curie Research Fellow, and I'd like for you to consider in some time in the future applying for Fulbright or Mary Skłodowska-Curie fellowships. So today I'm talking about advancing women in engineering, like everyone else, but I'm also celebrating some accomplishments in Poland that Ireland needs to learn from. And one of those is that researchers suggest that we need to get at least 1/3 of the people in any discipline being women to start to break through so the culture is not so male-centric. And here, in the European countries, a number of countries have reached a level of 1/3 participation by women if you include engineering, manufacturing, and construction in this. And Poland is one of these. So there were 2 reasons I wanted to talk with women in Poland. One is because we have a lot of Polish people in Ireland working in technology and living there. And also because of this success rate here that I felt we and the UK could learn from. So we're far behind in the UK and Ireland. In the UK, only 7% of professional engineers are women, and fewer than 4% of engineering technologists are women. And by the time a woman is 12, she starts making decisions that by the time she's 16, we heard about self-selection earlier, by the time she's 16, she will have opted out of things that will make it virtually impossible for her to go into STEM education at higher level. In Ireland, it's similar, but DIT, Dublin Institute of Technology, where I'm working now, is a viable route for someone who wants to come catch up. But in Ireland still, only 9% of our professional engineers are women today. And if you're a female engineer, even at the senior levels, you're half as likely to be in senior management as a male engineer. So I wanted to find out, I had questions, and I proposed a project saying that, look, STEM education is important for economic viability and sustainability. So in Ireland, some of the things that I ran into that were different from here are that I found out our girls are coming from all-girls schools for high schools. That physics, engineering, and construction studies are really difficult for them to get. I noticed this by speaking with Polish women who didn't have the same problem of getting those subjects in high school. The women in Ireland who were from larger and mixed co-ed schools, they didn't face the same barriers as the women who came from the all-girls schools, but 1/3 of our schools in Ireland are gender specific. And the women in Poland, Portugal, Oman, and Kuwait all described having better support for going into STEM education at the third level, as we just heard about. So I did a phenomenological study. It's qualitative. This was funded by the EU, and the title of it is Re-Engineering Europe's STEM Pipeline. And this type of research is trying to find out about the consciousness and how people experience different phenomena. Here, the phenomenon for me was being in engineering education. So this is an ideal method, phenomenology, for studying this kind of question. And it's one of 5 different qualitative research methods that are well known. So, female participants in my study, I had 47. I've conducted interviews with 47 women. That's a whole lot for this type of study. And I'm drowning in data. I'm currently still analyzing it, even though I'm coming to the end of my 2 years of funding. But I can answer all kinds of questions by looking at the things that these women told me when I talked to them. We'd sit down for an hour and a half, and I would open with a really general question: how's it going for you? And they would just talk for an hour and a half. Usually I didn't have, it was very conversational, but usually I didn't have to ask a lot of follow-up questions. I was particularly interested in collaborative learning and outcomes of problem-based learning. So in Ireland, I talked with 13 native Irish women and 11 women who were schooled outside of Ireland. 8 of them were from Middle Eastern countries. In Portugal, I talked to 11 women, and in Poland to 12. Now, these are at specific institutions for the most part, and my group in Poland was different from the other groups because I had more age diversity, but I also had people who volunteered because somehow Bianca connected me to them, and they didn't mind speaking in English. So I had almost everybody who I've talked to was successful in engineering and persisting and doing well in school. And I've had few chances to talk with people who decided to change. In Ireland, I talked to our entire first year group, and very few of them have dropped out. I did get to talk with a couple who decided to leave, but most people decided to stay. So in Poland, I heard some things I wasn't expecting, or some things that I saw through contrast and comparison, and that is that the women talked about having physics activities when they were in middle school and in high school. I didn't hear this in Ireland. They had open access to diverse types of high schools. So they didn't make their choices based on which all-girls school to go to. They made their choices depending upon often the ranking system that we just heard about, or the quality of education they'd get from a particular school. They had a clearer idea of what they enjoyed doing in middle school or high school connected. And most of them said they knew early on that the technical university was the way to go. They had good experiences in the university, the people I talked to. Most of them were, in fact, in courses that were mostly men. There were few women in for most of them, not so much in physics, but they didn't run into very many group projects. This was different from in the other countries. In the other countries, there were more group projects and more instruction in how to deal with group projects, how to work in teams. There's stories told, though, that they often provided organizational and leadership for organized events and also on their own initiative. They talked about earning the confidence of their peers and their teachers. And they said that when there was a difference that they experienced based on gender, it usually was to their benefit because they'd get opportunities because they were more visible. But a drawback was that they were telling me stories about difficulty breaking into the industry, getting in the door, or getting assigned as many tasks that were challenging enough. They'd get more PowerPoints than their equally qualified male peers, or even less qualified male peers. But later on, when they'd been in industry a bit longer, when they started to find their fit, then they had inspiring stories of success. So one thing I noticed definitely was that there was a lack of the idea of mentorship or having a go-to person. And luckily, this is changing because of what's going on here in this group. So I'm going to have to skip ahead. These are some points of comparison that I talked about. But one thing that we see is here, in the institutes of technology, you have, or the university, technological universities, you've achieved 37% women participation in them. And this is something that we need to strive for in other countries. So, lots of comparison points that I don't get to talk about. Originally, they'd assigned us more time than we ended up getting, so there we go. Of this, I would say, so one of the things that I'm pointing out, it's on this next slide, is I'm talking to Irish policymakers now and saying, what can we learn from the situation in Poland? And what I discovered is that in 2008, a very clear policy was put into place in Poland to make very clear to people what the definitions of different types of engineering are and how to connect competitions that are going on in the middle schools and high schools so that students understand what type of engineering they're getting involved in. They start to see people who are doing that type of engineering, and they understand how to go through the education system to get to that type of study at third level. So another interesting thing I found is that in the States, architecture isn't usually considered engineering, but here people have a very clear picture, and it typically is that anything that's offered at the University of Technology is considered to be engineering. It helps people have a clearer picture of what they think of as engineering and what it looks like. And so that I've made specific recommendations to Ireland drawn from what I see are good things that are happening here, and also from talking with students in these 4 other countries. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I think it was a very interesting presentation. And also what I like a lot is that Poland actually is a good example, good practice. So I didn't realize that we have such a good position of women in STEM. Now we have our speaker from Ethiopia, and I give the floor. It will be another very interesting presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm grateful for the Perspective Education Foundation, especially Dr. Bianca, because I am here because of her effort to come here and present or share my experiences and learn from others. So I am from Ethiopia. For sure, most of you don't know where Ethiopia is and the country Ethiopia. Ethiopia is one of the countries of Africa, and she's the Horn of Africa, and she's a country of the great runner Haile Gebremedhin and Qananiisa Beqqele, if you know that. And from female, there are Tutulu, and there are other female runners. Okay, so my presentation focuses on the Hawassa University STEMcenter and the women gender gap in that country, especially the Hawassa University. Sorry? Okay. Okay. This is sort of the campus of Hawassa University. I'll try to make my presentation very short because my moderator is telling us to make it very short, okay? The outline, higher education in Ethiopia and Hawassa University in short. So the establishment of the Hawassa University, it is established in 2000 GC and as full-fledged university by the merger of 3 independent campuses. And also, today Hawassa University is the first ranking comprehensive public university in the nation, providing all-round education and training through its diverse academic programs. Administrative or organizational structure, there is a board of the university and also the president and 6 vice presidents. But you can imagine that from these 6 vice presidents, no woman. Yes, there is no woman. Okay. 1 institute and 7 colleges are in Hawassa University. These are Institute of Technology, College of Agriculture, College of Business and Economics, and Natural Sciences Resources, and College of Medicine and Health Sciences, and etc. academic programs. There are so many undergraduate and graduate programs. Campuses, as I said, there are 6 campuses in different places. Some of them are at the Hawassa city. Okay, this is a STEM. In the Hawassa University, there is a STEM center. This center is founded by a American philanthropy named Mark Gale Fund, and its age is only 2 years. 2 years this year. And the teaching and learning facility at Hawassa University are adequate staff and classrooms and lecture theater, dormitories and conference halls, library and laboratories, workshops and farms, teaching hospital and teaching hotel. It's a model teaching hotel, internet facilities, sport fields, and one is a STEM. This is some of the campus view. And there are so many existing collaborations, different collaboration with different universities, abroad universities. Okay, this is some of the view of the STEM Center in Hawassa University. This shows when it's inaugurated. The vision of the Hawassa University STEM Center is to create model science and engineering center, which serves as a forum for early identification and a cultivation of budding scientists and engineers, because it is very kid now, because it's a 2-year age. And its mission is to develop an enriched curriculum and to reinforce science education by providing additional hands-on training students who have interest and capability in science and engineering fields. There are strategies to facilitate this or to come up with this vision and mission. This strategy is one of the strategies, developing an intensive program which are responsive to the needs of individual students, teachers, parents, and other special groups which are enrolled in the center program. And fostering competition in the form of science fair, that is working projects, for which involves every school at the initial level and culminates at the township level at the final step. And identifying and involving volunteers who will act as a backbone of the center to provide competent technicians or technical personnel who can carry out special demonstration and instructional sessions. And these volunteers will be invited from the country as well as from abroad. Okay, its objectives are also here to create a favorable condition for those middle and higher level students, and to motivate students to be creative and innovative, and also to foster fundamental critical thinking skill and system thinking, and strive to develop meaningful and competitive STEM vision and encourage girls to lean in these fields. Okay, women in higher education. So women have made an important, as you know, I think so many things are presented by my colleagues, and we have already seen the presentation in the morning and also in the afternoon. So mine is simply to fill the gap, okay? Women have made important advances in their participation in higher education. They are still underrepresented in this discipline. It's obvious they are underrepresented, especially, this is in all over the world, but especially in Ethiopia and in Africa. This one is a huge number of underrepresentation in that country because of the its backwardness of the country, yes? Okay? This problem is more acute at the senior most levels of academic and professional hierarchies, not just only in Ethiopia, but elsewhere in the world, but ours is huge. Okay, having scientists and engineers with diverse backgrounds, interests, and culture assures benefit scientific and technological results, and the best use of these results, it's obvious. Okay, a full understanding of the factor constraining women career paths in STEM has often been hampered by the persistence of several myths and cliches. That's culture. The culture hinders the women or the girls to come to these fields because of the culture. It's one sort of handicap, yes, because in Ethiopia, especially in Ethiopia, girls are not preferring to enter into the STEM fields because they are just saying that physics and mathematics is only for boys. So there is a fear. There is a fear of joining the fields on this discipline, so that the number is really minimized. And also the various factors that have been identified in the economic literature at different stages of the career pipeline are stage of career development, higher education, and scientific productivity. Some of the paths for women are not as competitive as men, they said, and the other is, female faculty are less productive than their male counterparts, they say. This is another cliche and another problem. Women are more interested in family than in carers. I think this is also happening in other places everywhere, yes, not only in Ethiopia. Women take more than due to children so they are a bad investment, yes? So these are the problem of women to come to the STEM education or in the STEM field, to participate in the STEM fields. But female representation in STEM discipline remains low due to several factors which have a negative effect on information access, study field selection, retention, and graduation. And the literature, some literature indicates that preference, motives, value, stereotypes, and cultural norms can explain this situation. Young people make career choices on the basis of adult workers' experiences. Okay, so women in STEM, women seem less included than men to choose a STEM discipline when completing a non-scientific or technological track in high school. But in this case, when we see the number of the students, the female students in high school and primary school and the tertiary level in the university level, the number is bigger at the primary and high school level, but in the university, the number is coming minimized because of the fear of such fields, such disciplines. And girls' access to STEM cannot be envisaged when girls and women remain the majority of out-of-school children, youth, and illiterate adults, and the gap throws a shadow over entire society as no country can move forward with only have its creativity and energy and its dreams. Ethiopian women, now let's just come to the Ethiopia. Ethiopian women in science and technology indicate that the proportion of women engaged in science and research is by far lower as compared to other sub-Saharan African countries. Researchers indicate that only 13% of Ethiopian women are engaged in science and research. Imagine that, the number. Only 13% of women are engaged in science and technology fields. This means that we have a lot of homework to be solved. Yes, the gap between men and women become more broader in higher learning institutions than in junior classes. Ethiopian women challenges are multifaceted. One is they have responsibilities at home as well as in their workplaces. And however, if they are dedicated and assertive, nothing will stop them from achieving success. But there is no assertiveness in Ethiopia. The most important thing that women should consider is to be assertive and develop attitudes that they can do anything like men. That's why we gave priority for school girls in our STEMcenter to choose their career paths in these disciplines. They still need our support and encouragement, and the solution as which is active involvement of girls and women in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields and their decisiveness. STEM programs that provide financial support and mentorship attract girls because they give us opportunities to financially support themselves by completion of their academic career and also provide role models to reduce fear of the STEM fields. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Many problems, in fact, are similar also in Poland. I mean, we've heard all the key arguments for why women have to move twice as fast as men to get the same level. And this is not only Ethiopia. I was thinking actually about Ireland when she was saying about how low is the percentage of women in engineering in Ireland. So it's not very far from Ethiopia. So, well, we all should do some more work, right? Yeah. Yeah, so you know that's it's striking that even you have such a big differences among countries. The women's position in these countries are, I mean, similar problems. Let's put it that way. So now we will hear about the young generation views, the students, Polish students in UK. How do they see the future of STEM, their future in STEM, and how we can move a little bit forward? So the floor is yours, Marta.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me here, and it's such a pleasure to speak after so many distinguished speakers. I can't stop myself from commenting because you said that Polish high schools are so great, and I agree, they are good at bridging gaps, but something bad happens after high school, and if I recall correctly, there are only 2% of Polish Academy of Sciences are female, so somewhere in between something bad happens. But I agree, Polish high schools are quite good. In fact, some English high schools pay Polish students to come to England just because we are so good. And that's how I came to the UK. And I'm gonna talk mostly about what we are doing in the UK to bridge that gap and what it means to be a STEM student in the UK. The numbers of female students and professors and PhD students in the UK are quite similar to what you have in the States, exactly the same amount. But one good thing about the UK is that our numbers are growing every year, and that makes me very proud of the country I live in. And that's because we have a program called, I think that's one of the reasons, is we have a program called the Athena Swan, and it's a program that started in 2005, and it's basically an award program. So each university, each department can apply to get an award. You can either apply for a bronze, a silver one, or a gold one. And with each application, with each level, you have to commit to certain goals, commit to bridging the gender gap, to providing environment that's friendly to women who want to have children, who have families. You have to, since last year, you have to have programs that help trans students to stay in science. And also from last year, the program is directed not only at STEM subjects, but also at humanities, arts, and all the other subjects, because it's not only STEM subjects that need more women. In all the humanities and in biology and in medicine, there are more female students than male in the UK, and yet there is still a low number of professors in those fields. So I think we need help in all the fronts. And this program started 10 years ago in 2005, and it was only 10 universities at the beginning. Right now, it's almost all of the universities, and there is, I think, over 100 universities enrolled and over 130 awards in different departments. So I think more or less everyone has agreed that it's needed, and definitely a big step in developing the award was when the NHS, the National Health Service, said that if a medical or biomedical department wants to get funding from NHS or wants to get funded by public money, they need to have at least a Silver Athena Award. And I think that was, simple. You just have to say you have to do that, otherwise you won't have any money. And I think that worked very, very well. Right now, my university has a silver award as well, but there are some departments that have bronze. There are not that many departments in all of the UK that have a gold award. The first one was the chemistry department in York, and I was looking at it yesterday. And I think they're doing such a great job. There are stories that you can read about of things that should be obvious, and when I'm reading about those things, I'm like, why is this not obvious in so many places? For example, that a PhD student, when she gets pregnant, she gets time off and is allowed to take more time to finish her PhD. Or the fact that, for example, a simple thing, if you organize a yearly departmental social, maybe don't organize drinks, but organize a family barbecue, and that will let all the women come. So those are small steps. But I think it's definitely working, and in the UK the numbers are rising slowly, but they're rising. And yet, I'm not going to be that optimistic. When I came to university, there were more girls in my course, and we were all very optimistic. We were all going to be scientists because, we've had all those amazing role models. And when I think right before I came to university, first female was appointed the president of the Royal Society of Chemistry. And she is an amazing woman, by the way. If you want to listen more about what's going on in the UK, if you Google Professor Leslie Yellow-Lees, she's done some amazing things, and she was the first female president. And she did a project called 175 Faces of Chemistry, and she showed everyone that chemists are not only white males, there are also females, there are black males, black females, there are Muslim, they're gay, they're trans, everything. And I think she is amazing. And so, we all came to university inspired. We were all gonna be the next Marie Curie and whatnot. And then we finished. And most of the guys stayed at the university, they're doing PhDs. And most of us didn't. And so something did happen in the middle, and for some reason we didn't choose. And I was talking to my friends, I asked them, why did we all decide not to do science? And most of the answers were because, when you're doing a PhD, you don't get that much money. If you get money, if you're lucky, you probably will earn something like £16,000 per year, which is really not much when you live in London. Then you have to do a postdoc, you have to move around. By the time you're 30, you're not earning much, you've moved like 10 times. And so most of my friends, female friends, said, that's not something that we want to do. We want to settle down, have a place that we live and maybe start a family. So I'm not gonna be that optimistic, but I think there is a lot to be done. And if the award works and if all the departments agree that just having simple things for families, allowing time out, time off, and doing simple things for women, and family, might actually help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think all these small steps are important, right? I mean, it's not like moving mountains at the beginning, but even the small steps, though I think the time for systemic measures that Jill was saying, it will help. If you have some sort of changes of the system, institutional system, and also, individual approach of women and some environment, a lot of things need to go together in order to fill the gap. Okay, so as promised, I open the floor for some comments or questions, if you have any, because I have 3 questions myself to the panelists. But if you do, it would be great to, could we ask somebody here to help? If not, you present yourself and try to be brief to give a chance, because I would like to take at least 3 questions, and then
Okay, my name is Jakub Buchiński. I actually work here at the Copernicus Science Center and also for the European Space Agency, supporting education related to space and STEM. I have a question regarding the British, the Irish systems in comparison to the Polish system, because one thing I was very curious about is you talked about it very briefly, the fact that girls in the British system and the Irish system sort of locked themselves out of the possibility of going into a STEM subject at the university. Just I've studied in Britain for a while as well. I can see that this is because they select a couple of, say, humanities tracks even in secondary school, and there's absolutely no way to catch up with that after a couple of years of doing absolutely nothing scientific at all. And I actually graduated from a school in Warsaw, and also the same one that got the award from Perspective today. We actually had to study 15 subjects all the way from the first grade all the way to the end of high school. Absolutely none of us was allowed to drop out of humanities, and none of us were allowed to drop out of physical stuff, of mathematics, physics, anything. We had to do it all.
So what is the question?
So my question would be, if you could comment on, because this is one of the biggest differences I find between the Polish system when it comes to STEM education at the high school, secondary school level. Could you comment on that, whether this is a big impact, whether you found that this is a big impact on the system on the Isles?
Yeah, maybe we can gather all questions and then we come back to the panel, because as I have to tell you, our time is not, very flexible. We have some 15 minutes left. There was one question here. Do I see any questions? No? Well, if not, then we can come back to the panel. And you think, yes?
So my name is Julia, I'm coming from Lithuania, and I was very interested in the presentation from Saudi Arabia, really impressed about the numbers. And my question maybe will be very small one. I would love to know how much it is, you said that it's paid salary per month, right? And how it's in comparison to the average salary per month. If you go to job, like, you go to normal job, so it's average salary. And then if you go to study, so what is it? Okay?
That's a very good question. Third question, if not, okay. The last question now, and we come back to the panel. We will ask first for comments from Ireland and UK, and then Saudi Arabia. Whoops.
Okay, so quickly, again, I'm an outsider looking at this, but what I've come to learn is this disproportionately affects the students I was talking to, because I was in Dublin. So I was talking to students who were educated there, and a high number of them went to the all-girls schools. So in those schools, there are limited resources, and when the principal has to decide what subjects to offer them to help them prepare for their learning cert, they pick their subjects. It's much like the advanced placement tests in the United States, where we figure out where we'll develop some emphasis. So there's a lot of social pressure from the students, but the principal will also ask, what would you like to be offered? And then the principal will offer what most students want, which is consistently business, economics, French, music. And the construction studies, engineering, and particularly physics gets left out. So a number of the students I talked to were bold enough to take a stand and insist that they get it. 2 of them got the teachers to teach them after school. Nobody got official credit for it in the school day. And both times those were male teachers who stayed after working with them. But another problem, though, is that there's a perception that physics is required, and it is if you go into engineering in the university. But if you go into our institutes of technology, hopefully Dublin Institute of Technology will be a technological university soon, our first in Ireland. We offer other avenues, but people don't realize this. Yes, it'll be harder for you to catch up if you haven't studied that, but there are avenues to do it. You don't have to take that route.
Thank you.
Can I just comment on that?
Sure,
because 2 comments, really. The first thing is, you sounded like girls' schools are a bad thing, and in my experience, they're the best thing. Like for STEM and girls schools are so good. And I went to one, and when I was in a mixed school in Poland, I felt like I could never do maths or physics. And then I went to an all-girls school, and my God, it was quiet. There were no guys shouting at me that I'm stupid. And then it turned out that I'm actually really good at maths and physics. So, yeah, okay, you agree. Good.
That's a good point.
And the second thing is, you said about kind of locking yourself out when you choose the subject. And in reaction to that, my university last year, they changed the entrance requirements for engineering, and now if you're I think it's only for girls, maybe it's for everyone, if you want to get accepted to engineering, you don't have to have a maths A-levels, and apparently people who don't have a maths A-levels do really well at engineering. Yeah, if they catch up, and it's apparently not that hard, they're actually doing very well, and it increased the number of girls really, really fast and efficiently, and it was such a small thing to do.
That's a good point. Okay, we will ask maybe for the
in terms
answer
of
and one more
salaries,
question.
for the private sector, it's much better than the government sector. The government, we don't have one entity having their own salaries. The government across the board, every ministry, they have categories, levels. You get paid so much if you're at this level, but you are entitled to promotion. Promotion is not in the hands of the boss. You have to have certain requirements, and if they apply to you, apply for a promotion. You should get it if you have the requirements. A boss doesn't say you'll be promoted and you won't be promoted. In terms of the university, it's a different pay structure. If you're a TA or a lecturer or assistant professor, you get, for example, assistant professor, you are paid, I think, around $4,000. But as faculty, we get the percentages I just said based on your major. We also are paid for departmental meetings. We're paid for committees. So that kind of adds up. For example, my committee attendance is double my salary. It's actually double my salary. And then you get all these different types of privileges. We also don't pay taxes. Our salaries are not that great, but we don't pay taxes. We have no taxes whatsoever. So whatever we earn, it's our own. Yeah.
It's a good idea to introduce. If you would have no taxes in Poland, then our salary certainly will be much bigger. Okay, so we have last question and comment.
Renata from Częstochowa University of Technology. I am supervisor of now small group of students who act in Erasmus Plus manager group. And I'm thinking about finding any good tools of motivating for those people to go, for example, STEAM. So are there any tools of motivating young people to go STEAM in your countries? This is a question to all of your ladies.
Okay, thank you very much. That's a very nice question to wrap up our panel. And what I would like to do is to ask each panelist to give, a tool, one or two tools you think would be good for encouraging in your country young people to go to STEM. And maybe a key message you would like us all to remember from this panel. So you will have not much time, maybe 3 minutes, something like that. But I think it would be nice to wrap up a little bit. You know, we've heard a lot of experiences, a lot of things which are common to the gap in STEM, gender gap. But we've heard also about some ideas how to solve them. So we start with the tools and maybe adding up. And I was thinking how we could start, if we could start from maybe the left to make it easier that way, so each of the panelists could prepare and maybe make this final statement. Okay?
Okay, so two quick examples that I know of. Neither one of them are actually from Ireland. One is that the Mary Skłodowski-Curie actions require a public engagement outreach component. So one of the 3 major projects that I have is actually working with my colleagues to offer robotics education to kids. And now we're starting to track the results. And in fact, today, right now, we're receiving an award for that work. But another thing that's going on in the UK is a really interesting program. You know, as engineers, you get certified, right? So you become a certified engineer. And a woman in Scotland has created a program where they also have these certifications at the primary and the secondary level so that school kids can earn a certification in engineering or a secondary certification in engineering. They get a certificate for being involved in the program, and the requirements start very accessible and they're easy to accomplish. One of the things that you do is every year you talk with an existing engineer, somebody who already is an engineer, have a conversation with them. And at the beginning, that could be enough to get you your certification. And to me, it's a very intriguing idea, and it would be particularly appealing to the kind of kids who like accolades, like I think everyone in the room.
Nice. Yeah, it's a nice small step, huh? Again.
I think in the UK we don't have like very big programs, but we have all those small things. And for example, when we are at university as students, we are very much encouraged to do outreach, and the scientists as well. So we do a lot of work with high school students. And when I was in high school, I got some people from the university talking to us. And I think, as you said, that's the idea of seeing a person and thinking, wow, this is like an actual scientist. I want to be like you. That's definitely useful. And doing some cool experiments. Just don't tell them that you don't do them at university. They will be disappointed. But yeah, I think the fun stuff is good.
What about choosing women instead of men engineer, right? Did you mean that? Yeah. Would it help?
To make the presentations.
Well, to meet with school kids.
Absolutely, and we are doing a lot of that. But I would say, I mean, I was fortunate in that the fact that here in the European Union, there is an emphasis on achieving gender diversity among researchers. So as I talked about the women here in Poland saying that if anything, their gender helped them because they stood out more. The teachers know if they're not in the lecture, but the teachers also think of them when an opportunity comes along because they know their names, because there are fewer of them. So for me, actually, I'd say it was an advantage because the EU wants to achieve its measurable goals of 40% women in research, and was interested in funding research on women in STEM. So for me, it helped me that there were measurable goals, and I hope we'll move to a place where we do start tracking that instead of just saying we're going to recruit from this pool of highly talented, highly successful people. We need to find ways where we're giving people who were not given advantages all along, minority students and women who are starting out from behind, a chance not just to be at the starting line, but an actual chance to get across it.
Thank you very much. Now, could we...
I think in our case, it was basically government intervention very early on with financial incentives. Then they added a few years after that sponsorship, that if you go into the STEM or medical fields, they will sponsor you to get higher degrees abroad, fully sponsored, fully paid for. There's more job guarantees if you're in the STEM or medical fields. And in addition to that, we teach in English. These colleges, we teach in English. So students tend to think, if I go and study in English, it will open up a lot of doors for me. The humanities and School of Economics, they teach in Arabic. So they're kind of limited in their jobs, because whenever you go to apply for a job, English is a requirement, and they feel that they don't have the necessary skill in language to have that kind of job. So they tend to go to those colleges that will make them study in English for English proficiency. That means she can go study abroad easily, she can go to conferences, she can participate on a global stage rather than a local stage. I think these are language and financial incentives, I think, are the most, push the girls towards these fields.
And the government support.
The government definitely.
I think this is a very far-sighted strategy, I must say, and I was very appreciative of what you said. It's a role for the government to be played in that sense. Also in Poland, if we talk about innovative Poland or STEM Poland or whatever, the state should also put a bit of the emphasis of girls and women's involvement. Without that, it's really very difficult to achieve the difference.
So just very briefly, another project that I was involved with for about 7 years was a project that started with high school girls who were exploring engineering for future possible careers. And this was an after-school program. It's something that I think a lot of places could actually do pretty easily with just a few resources. And we relied on having, somebody mentioned, having women engineers come to talk with the girls and taking them to career fairs, taking them to workplaces where engineers work, and especially where there's some women in the engineers. And then, so the first year was exploration. Second year, they were doing projects. They did group projects, so they actually, with mentors, with engineering mentors. And that's what got them really interested in engineering. And that's, thinking of our keynote speaker, that kind of project-based, education. And even though we started out with this was a project where we had 130 girls. Maybe about 20% of them went into engineering in the end, but all of them went into some form of science, some STEM field. So that was very successful, and this has been replicated in many places all over the United States. So that's something that's happening. But again, the states are so huge. So these are all things, you think it's a lot, but they're really sort of drops in the bucket, unfortunately. So my kind of, and finally, my sort of message is that I think it's really important to disseminate and to sustain these gains. Every little thing that we do that makes a difference. Let's talk about, in these kinds of forums and other places. And then other people can say, okay, well, I can do this. They've done this here, I can do this here. And eventually, I think it'll begin to make some difference. So.
Yeah, that's a very good message, just not to go backwards, but move all the time in front of. And
in our experiences, we encourage students from the grassroots, from the elementary level up to the high school level and preparatory level. We try to select some students who are gifted and talented in science and technology, and we try to include or engage these students in the science clubs. In these science clubs, there is a science talk, especially for girls, to talk about sciences in their rest time, especially in the weekend. They try to come to the center and speak about some sciences. And also there are some encouragements. The government also gives them an affirmative action and helps them girls to come to the STEM. And also we make them participate in science fair competition. In this science fair competition, they try to present what they innovated for the whole public in an exhibition form. So in this regard, we try to give them some rewards. So this is what we tried to encourage and bring these students to the science and STEM fields.
Thank you very much. I think all these tools and good practices could be brought into Częstochowa, at a smaller scale, maybe not, the government level involvement, but maybe some authorities of the city who could help. They will receive some funding, European Union funding, to promote innovation and to promote STEM. So why not? So I think I would like very much to thank all the great panelists for a very fantastic discussion and bringing us international level and global level. And let me take just 2 minutes to also invite you to the global event, which will take place in Warsaw on the 9th to 11th of June, next week, in fact, which is Global Summit of Women. And this is very much linked to the digital economy. This will be about women in digital economy from different aspects. It's called the Women's Davos, the event. It's a conference. You can move maybe a little bit forward. I'm not very good in what's in there. We expect around 1,000 of women coming from different continents, from Asia, from China, big delegation. We'll have people from Africa. We have people from Ethiopia, from Saudi Arabia, from Kuwait, from many countries, from the Arab area, from Latin America, of course, from Poland. And I would like you maybe to listen to the message of Henryka Bochniarz, who's the president of the Employers Association, but she's also the president of the Polish host committee of this event, and it's called Women Building an Inclusive Economy in the Digital Age. And it has a number of sessions, parallel sessions, plenary sessions. It's today, could you put, could we listen to her? It's a very short. Could you, if you make it, I will stop talking, and then if not, she just explains, I mean, I can tell what she says because I've listened to that. She said it's worth coming because this is so many diverse groups of women discussing one issue, how to make the women present in digital economy from different angles. They will be business leaders, they will be people who are entrepreneurs, they will be also members of the academia, and of course policymakers. We will have several women who had the governments, the host sort of institution will be Polish government. We will be hosted by our Prime Minister and the Minister of Economy here, Mr. Morawiecki, but also Premier Szydło. So I think it will be a very, very interesting event. This is a good news. The bad news is that it's a fee to pay. But I have to tell you that we have one event which has no fee, which is for the young people. And it's called the Youth Forum, Creating Digital Business. And this is free. And if you're interested, I will be very happy to provide you more information on that. And the registration is still possible. So I will have some possibility for you, for those of you who are interested to join. And I think it's worth it. Powiem jeszcze po polsku, że bardzo warto wziąć udział w tym forum młodzieżowym, to się tak nazywa Forum Młodzieży, które się nazywa Stwórz swój biznes, jak to się mówi, elektroniczny, tak? Internet cyfrowy, cyfrowy. Stwórz swój biznes cyfrowy. Będą studenci z głównych warszawskich uczelni, ale nie tylko. Będą również młodzi ludzie globalni, to znaczy z całego świata, którzy będą mówić, jak im się udało zrobić cyfrowy biznes w Afryce, w Ameryce Łacińskiej czy w Stanach Zjednoczonych. Także bardzo zapraszam, jeśli ktoś by chciał więcej się dowiedzieć, jak się zarejestrować, będę tutaj do dyspozycji po panelu. Bardzo dziękuję za uwagę wszystkim. Zapraszam na przerwę kawową. Thank you very much, everyone. Once again, thank you for excellent discussion.